Let's win a fantasy championship. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show on Thursday. We have 8 AFC home games to take a look at today, and actually 7 AFC home games and a NFC home game. Jets at Seattle. My head is spinning over that game. I don't think there's an easy decision in that entire game, guys. Agree or disagree? Jets at Seattle, not a single easy decision.
Garrett Wilson is an easy decision.
Is he, though? Third best against wide receivers.
Yes, he's an easy decision. Whether you think he's a number 1 or a number 2, you're not benching Garrett Wilson with what he's done with every quarterback not named Zach Wilson.
Okay, but
I think Marquise Goodwin's a pretty easy decision.
All right, Jets, Seahawks, Rams, Chargers, Denver, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Houston, Miami, New England, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, San Francisco at Las Vegas, no Derek Carr, Buffalo at Cincinnati on Monday night. That might be a pretty easy game for fantasy purposes. But tough one tonight with big news on the Thursday night game, Tennessee and Dallas. Heath, well, we were talking off the air. Weird week, tough to rank. I don't envy you having to do rankings.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to say something now, and then we'll bring it up again Sunday night and see if we feel more or less like this. But should we have just left championship games in week 16?
No.
There's so much dumb stuff that's going to happen this week that's already begun with the Carr benching because they don't want him to get hurt and have to pay him next year, the Derrick Henry and the Titans sitting. I would imagine we'll get more tomfoolery as the next couple of days come. I think we ought to consider it. I think when you get to Sunday night, your answer might be a little different.
But there's only one team that's
There's no way people are doing that.
Yeah.
Well, no, there's 2 teams, the Raiders.
No. I mean, there's no way fantasy leagues are going to do that.
Oh no, he was responding to me. The Raiders, are they sitting? Yeah, right. I know they're a unique case. You know what? Fine.
Who else are they sitting besides Carr?
Rappaport's tweet said other veterans will take a step back. So we'll find out.
Yeah. All right. Well, they're going to take a step back as they're playing the 49ers. So it's not going to be a good day for them, most likely. We will talk about that game. I'll tell you, Jarrett Stidham has thrown 26.2% of his career passes to running backs.
Jarrett Stidham,
yeah.
So Amir Abdullah is going to have a big game then, huh?
Sure. Let's talk about Thursday night first, Jamie, because Tennessee, Derrick Henry is listed as doubtful. They've already ruled out 4 defensive starters. There are 2 more that are doubtful, so they're probably going to be without half their starting defense and Derrick Henry. So
start all, sit all. It's a very easy game to handicap.
Yeah, so easy to sit Titans, but what about Pollard? You know, Pollard's questionable, and then
if he plays, you start him.
How much is he even going to play though?
You just have to take the chance. Look, you made it to your championship with Tony Pollard. If he's active, you play him.
Okay, would you?
Unless we hear something that he's going to be limited on a snap count, and your team is loaded, then I get it. But
I thought we'd already heard that
he's going to be limited.
Yeah.
The only thing I've heard is it's questionable. So,
I will find what I'm talking about.
What about a guy like Leonard Fournette or Ken Walker?
Yeah, those guys are easy to play over Pollard. Yeah, I totally get that. It's
Walker over Pollard.
The fact that he missed practice on Wednesday, you can't take that chance.
Right. Okay. How about Garrett Wilson or Tony Pollard?
I mean, if the choice is that in PPR, I'd play Garrett Wilson. But again, you're talking about, very good players. So, I think if it comes down to Tony Pollard or Tyler Algier as my start of the week, then that's a tough call. If you're talking about Tony Pollard or Bam Knight, who could have a good game, but obviously it's been really bad the last 2 weeks, I'm going to play Pollard.
Okay. Well, I guess we're starting Tony Pollard then, most likely. Now, look, a lot of teams have great rosters at this point, obviously, and hopefully great choices. And we'll find out more. Obviously, we got a live stream at 2:00, so you can join us there, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Hopefully we get some type of report before that. If not, we'll be on Twitter, whatnot. We'll get
honestly, if he's going to be limited, your best case scenario is that they sit him. So
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, Jamie, Tyler Algier, the other one. Tyler Algier is apparently your start of the week. Tell us why you love Tyler Algier this week.
Yeah, clearly he's been, trending in the right direction for the Falcons. And, you saw the playing time last week, spike by comparison to Cordero Patterson. And Algier, back-to-back weeks with at least 15 PPR points, 22 points in one of those games. And the role in the passing game was fun to see. 4 catches last week against Baltimore. And what he did against Baltimore is really impressive because that run defense has been pretty special. The Cardinals' run defense is not. 5 games in a row with 17 or more PPR points to running back for the season. It's like 13 guys have gotten to at least 15 PPR points. It should be an easy opportunity for them to lean on him once again. And he comes through with a big performance. So he'll end up, once I finish adjusting my rankings, around 15th in non-PPR, probably closer to 18 to 20 in full PPR. And so just love the setup for him this week. And not exactly the guy I thought I'd be saying to recommend in the championship week of your fantasy leagues, but it's been a nice 2-week climb for him. More than that, but the last 2 weeks, the ascension has been fun to watch, and the matchup's great.
Tyler Algier. Would you start Algier or David Montgomery at the Lions?
I would start Algier.
Okay.
In non-PPR. Full PPR, probably still Montgomery.
I
don't want to just automatically say his role in the passing game last week is going to be replicated.
Right. Well, that's the danger, obviously, is he's got the 0 catch potential, but it was nice to see 4 last week. Okay, Heath, what do you think? Who do you love this week?
Travis Etienne. The Jags are apparently going to play all of their guys, according to Doug Peterson. The Texans are arguably the worst run defense in football, or maybe the best matchup for running backs, at least in football. And Etienne has had a very good year that I think has been a little bit overshadowed because he's only scored 4 touchdowns. The Texans have given up more touchdowns to running backs than any other defense. I think he has a chance to get 20 touchdowns. He has a chance to get into the end zone at least once. He is a top 10 running back this week, and I've had a hard time finding top 10 running backs.
Okay.
He's the one Jaguars star, and I'll say that with the guys who've been starting, that makes me the most nervous from a playing time standpoint.
Etienne?
Yeah, just because he can, dealing with the foot injury. I mean, you could say the same about Lawrence with the toe injury. If they have any semblance of a lead going into, fourth quarter and he hasn't done anything by that point, they could clearly pull. I'm with you. I mean, he's a top 10 running back for me as well, but he's the one that just I feel the most nervous about him.
Well, you guys don't – I don't know the rankings off the top of my head, but you don't have Kirk and Zay Jones ranked all that high, right?
No.
Kirk's around 20 and Jones like 26, 27.
But yeah, you guys have Lawrence ranked pretty high. So
I mean, as we saw last week, his legs and Evan Ingram got him to 18 points.
18 points. That's not good.
Yeah, but if he has another passing touchdown, which could go to Ingram as well, that's a pretty good day.
Adam, this week is awful. Tell me the guys you want to rank as top 8 quarterbacks. We could do that as well. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean it's he's a top 6 or 7 guy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 5 for Jamie, 8 for Dave, and 5 for Heath. Trevor.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop him a few spots again, just from the concern of defensive touchdown, wacky something. And they start to pull back at some point.
I think there are only 3 quarterbacks that I feel very confident in this week. And that would be Mahomes, Allen, and Burrow.
So we have 3 quarterbacks, 8 running backs, and 9 wide receivers.
Yeah. And then maybe, honestly, I wouldn't rank them 4th, but I feel like the one I have the most confidence in after that to at least be good is Jared Goff.
Not Fields?
No, I just don't know how healthy he is. I'm more, that's all about his foot. If he's healthy, I think he's going to have a massive game, and I'll treat him as such. But it's a tough week.
For the record, not this week, but the last 2 games.
Rushing record, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, players to avoid. Jamie, who are you sitting?
All Raiders. I mean, Devontae Adams and Darren Waller included, if you can. That's in 2 receiver leagues for Adams. Waller's not going to be a top 12 tight end. It's just quarterback plus matchup. Not good.
And Heath?
I think DeAndre Swift. It sounds like Jamal Williams is back, and so I have no clue if DeAndre Swift's going to have 3 key touches or 12. But, I mean, even last week when Jamal Williams left early, he had 5. So I don't have any faith in DeAndre Swift, even in a great matchup.
It is a great matchup. I think I think I said on Monday, the Bears are over the last 5 weeks, I think they're one of the 5 worst in yards before contact allowed to running backs. So running backs are just getting a big head start. We know the Lions are good at that.
Do you remember DeAndre Swift's last game against the Bears?
I don't. I was actually going to ask you about Jamal Williams, but no, I don't remember it.
6 carries, 6 yards, 1 touchdown.
Oh, a touchdown. Okay.
Yeah, that was during his stretch of nothing but touchdowns.
All right, well, we'll talk about that game tomorrow. You want to get into the NFL draft? Seems like a lot of teams right now would just like to get into the NFL draft. Check out our new podcast with Ryan Wilson and Rick Spielman. Rick Spielman, a former general manager, drafted Justin Jefferson, drafted Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cook. Now he and Ryan Wilson have a brand new weekly NFL draft podcast called With the First Pick, where they dive deep into mock drafts, prospect profiles, stock watch, and more. That's With the First Pick. Perfect time to start listening to that as we got college football bowl games and the playoffs coming up. So With the First Pick, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I want to give a shout out to a loyal listener, a dedicated listener. Anthony reached out to Dan Schneier the other day. I know you guys have been chatting, and even though apparently you think that the cream is the best part of the Oreo, you're wrong about that, but we still love you, and thank you for listening, Anthony. Appreciate it. Our listener of the day. News and notes. Heath Cummings is probable to return. He's not on right now, but he should be back. Okay. News and notes. Teddy Bridgewater is going to start this week. Carson Wentz is going to start this week. Jared Stidham is going to start this week. And Colt McCoy is going to start this week. Okay, Jamie. So we look at all of the number 1 wide receivers on those teams. Tyreek Hill, let's say he's number 1. After that, we've got Waddle, McLaurin, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. How would you rank Waddle, McLaurin, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins?
Full PPR?
Sure.
Hopkins, Waddle, McLaurin, Adams.
Okay, and then you got Jalen Hurts missing practice. And according to ESPN's Dan Graziano, Hurts may not even be fully healthy for their first playoff game. I guess some people in the organization wondering if he'll be able to, he'll be able to play, but how effective he'll be in their first playoff game, which would be assuming that they get the bye. So I don't know. I mean, are you thinking he's going to miss this week?
I think you have to assume that, Nick Sirianni's talking a big game, understandably so. This game does have certainly playoff implications, but also franchise implications, because if they win, they knock down the Saints 1 more spot to increase their draft pick. So that, I think, matters as well. But clearly, as we've noted throughout the week, they want to make sure Jalen Hurts is healthy because they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So I would imagine that if he is in any way, shape, or form banged up, they can at least try and salvage next week's game if they need to lock up the 1 seed, because they just need to win 1 more game. So if he's still 80%, 90%, 98%, they should sit him just to make sure 100% healthy, get him right next week. You get your game in before the bye, and then you hopefully have him for the playoffs.
Okay, Lamar Jackson missed practice. Are you guys expecting Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson this week?
Huntley.
Aaron Rodgers missed practice with a knee injury. He is
Jordan
expected.
Love.
No. And Jacksonville will not rest its starters this week.
Let me ask you this. Who would you rather see in the playoffs? The Commanders or the Packers?
Packers, obviously.
I don't know if it's obvious.
Well, the Commanders are so boring. I'm not saying they're bad or anything. They're just really boring.
I'm going to say the Seahawks.
I'm going to say the Lions.
Okay.
Yeah. I had them the Giants.
Well, the Giants are in.
No, they are not in.
They're going to win this week.
They win, they're in. But if they lose, they might see Jalen Hurts next week. And, the game, obviously, this week against the Colts. Derrick Henry is doubtful. Tony Pollard, we'll see. We ran through that. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris were both limited. That game we'll talk about in a little bit. Miles Sanders missed practice with a knee issue. A lot of guys missed practice on Wednesday, so we're going to assume it's just a rest thing. Ken Walker, same thing. They're trying to keep him fresh because he's dealing with the ankle. Aaron Jones was limited. That one's tough. Would you guys start Tony Pollard if he plays tonight, or a Packers running back?
Dylan, Pollard, Jones.
Ooh.
I'd start Pollard over both.
Nick Chubb says he will play the last 2 games of the season. Latavius Murray missed practice. Alvin Kamara missed practice with a personal issue and a quad injury. Jamal Williams.
Mad.
What's that?
And he's mad.
He's mad. You think this is squeaky wheel or just like wheels
I
spinning
think
off.
having talked to him a handful of times, he's a pretty honest guy, and I don't think he doesn't really play the NFL coach speak game. So you ask him a question, I think he gives you honest
Do you
answers.
think he will get the squeaky wheel treatment, or do you think just
No, I think his role is what it is. I think they want to use other guys on third down opportunities, which is frustrating. But
So he's mad because he wants fewer carries and more catches?
I think he wants his role in third downs still. I don't think he wants to come off the field.
Yeah. Jamal Williams not on the injury report. Antonio Gibson,
think about this team, for example.
questionable.
He doesn't come off the field on the big play against the Bucs, and that's him catching the ball as opposed to an injured Mark Ingram. They may win the division.
Why did Ingram fumble on that play?
No, Ingram came up short.
Oh, the
Bucs
yard short, right? And he was sick of
had
it.
a 13-point comeback in 3 minutes, and they're now a game behind the Panthers and the Bucs.
Tyler Lockett sounds like he's trending in the right direction. So they're not committing to Tyler Lockett playing yet, but that would be a pretty big deal. Chris Olave was limited at practice. I can't imagine anyone's going to start him with confidence right now. Christian Watson missed practice. Devontae Parker missed practice. Mecole Hardman is going to play. Did Mecole Hardman crack your top 36 guys?
No.
We have not ranked him yet because they were trying to get him to play last week, and they were trying to get him to play the week before, and they were trying to get him to play the week before that. So I think we'll wait until he's officially active.
Okay. And Kendall Hinton practiced for the Broncos. Jerry Jeudy also left practice, but he returned, and I really hope, I don't think this would be the case, but I hope Kendall Hinton does not play and push Jerry Jeudy back into the slot. I think we want him on the outside at this point.
I think it's all a gamble at this point. We have a new coach, a new play caller.
Yeah. Hayden Hurst could play this week. They got the Monday night game. We're not interested in him. Hunter Henry did practice. Jonnu Smith did not practice here. Would Hunter Henry be a streaming option if he plays and Jonnu does not against the Dolphins? Great matchup.
No.
Deep leagues.
Greg Dulcich missed practice and Noah Fant missed practice. On the offensive line, the Bucs could be getting some good news with Ryan Jensen, their center, eligible to return from IR. Doesn't mean he'll play this week, but possibility. Green Bay left tackle David Bakhtiari was limited, and Minnesota center Garrett Bradbury missed practice. I believe he has missed 3 straight games. On defense, Titans are resting 4 defensive starters, probably going to be 6 key players. So they're going to just roll over against the Cowboys, it seems. The Raiders, this definitely helps Christian McCaffrey. Denzel Perryman, their starting linebacker, and Chandler Jones, starting defensive end, are both on IR. The Giants, if you're looking to stream the Giants DST this week, starting off the week with good news, Leonard Williams, Adoree Jackson, Azeez Ojulari, all key players, all injured, all limited. So I would expect Williams to play, the other 2 questionable.
I think they started off the week with good news watching that Monday night game.
Yeah, but you know what? Look, I'm just very nervous about it. Just let me be nervous about it.
What are you nervous about?
They need to win the game. If they don't win the game, they're probably not going to the playoffs. So they are bad enough to lose to any team on any week. Kenny Moore.
I gave you $1 million right now. You had to bet it on one team to win this week. Who would you bet it on? You can't use 49ers.
Cowboys.
Can't use Cowboys.
What?
Chiefs.
Yeah, or Eagles.
It's the Giants. Come on.
Well, Kenny Moore missed practice for the Colts. They've been horrible since he got hurt. If you're in IDP leagues, check out Pete Werner for the Saints. He was limited in practice. Hopefully he can get back out there. And Marshawn Lattimore was also, I misspelled both of their names, Lattimore and Werner. Both limited, blah, blah, blah. New England cornerback Marcus Jones with the concussion protocol, and Miami edge Bradley Chubb missed practice, and we're going to take a break. When we come back, 1 question for each game, starting with that Jets-Seattle game. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Hey, Jets-Seattle, I already asked this question earlier. It was, is there an easy lineup decision in this game? Jamie and Heath think Garrett Wilson is an easy lineup decision, so I will ask you, DK Metcalf? No, I will ask you Geno Smith or Mike White.
Geno for me.
Mike White. I don't like Geno this week, even if Lockett plays.
Keith, give me a 10-second answer why you're going with Geno over Mike White.
Well, I mean, as much as Geno has struggled lately, Mike White's had one good game out of 3. And it is a road game for Mike White. It is still the Seahawks are still just as much in the playoff hunt as the Jets. And so I think it'll be a very competitive game. And the Seahawks have been a little bit tough to pass on. It's easy to run on them.
Yeah. Hey, Rams at Chargers. Would you start Cam Akers over the following players? DeAndre Swift, Rashad White, and Najee Harris.
Yep.
1,000% yes.
Okay. Would you start him over Jerick McKinnon in, let's say, a half PPR league? Cam Akers or McKinnon?
Akers.
Oh. All right. Denver at Kansas City. Any
Sounded
interest?
like a personal question.
What?
That sounded like a personal question.
Why?
That you needed that for your own lineups. It's a very specific.
No. I going on to our next game, which has Jerick McKinnon in it. But Denver at Kansas City. Any interest in Cortland Sutton?
Yes. 3 receiver leagues, absolutely.
Yeah, a little.
Okay. Jerry Jeudy's a must start in that game. Is any interest in Isaiah Pacheco?
Non-PPR, yes.
I think he's a low end number 2 in both formats.
Jacksonville at Houston. Travis Etienne is a must start. How about Christian Kirk or Cam Akers?
Akers.
Definitely Akers in non and half and full. All 3.
Okay. Miami at New England. Ramondre Stevenson or Jalen Waddle? Who's a better flex?
Ramondre.
Yep.
Does that mean you guys have full confidence in Ramondre Stevenson?
Yes.
Less if Harris is back, but currently, yes.
Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Who is the best running back in this game?
Najee.
Dobbins just slightly. They're both low end number 2s.
San Francisco at Las Vegas. Start all Niners, sit all Raiders?
Yes.
I'm not sitting Jacobs unless we get another report.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Start Jacobs.
Are you starting Brandon Ayuk?
Yes. He is, I think it's 145 yards away. I could be mistaken on that, from his first 1,000-yard season. And so I would imagine that's something they try to get him, maybe get him this week in case they don't play next week.
Must start in 3 wide receiver leagues, or if you have a flex. In a 2 wide receiver league without a flex, he's borderline.
I would agree 100%.
I struggle with him and Devontae Adams.
I would start Ayuk.
About Kirk or Ayuk?
Kirk.
Yeah, Ayuk had something like a 50-yard catch and run last week. That was almost all of his production. Purdy did
will have 3 of those this week.
I hope so. But Purdy did not look good throwing downfield. He threw downfield a lot more than he usually does, but he just doesn't have a good arm.
He had that great long touchdown pass to George Kittle that he was throwing to somebody else.
Right.
And Buffalo at Cincinnati. Bonanza? And any interest in Gabe Davis or a Bills running back, and who wins? 3 questions for this one game. So 1, is it a bonanza? 2, any interest in Gabe Davis or a Buffalo running back? And 3, who wins?
Sounds like 4 questions.
3.5.
Yes, it's a bonanza. No interest in a Buffalo running back. Interest in Gabe Davis in a 3 receiver league. And Bills win.
Ooh, you were so close.
I agree with all that, except I think Bengals win.
Yeah, that's right. Heath is right. Bengals win.
I really was surprised I didn't get interrupted with the music.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, we're going back to Dave this week. I don't know how we're going to do it.
How is this not the game of the week?
No, it can't be the game of the week. I just have to figure out a way to bring it up tomorrow.
Okay.
Hopefully there'll be some injury update or something.
I'm very excited for this game. Monday Night Football Island game. It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be the one game this week. Won't have to do any work, no notes, no nothing. I'm just gonna sit down and watch the game, and I just can't wait.
You're just taking Tuesday show off next week?
No, I'll have my notes done before the game, or after the game. I'm gonna watch that one.
I mean, I do all your notes for you.
Oh, that is not true. I do all the research on all the players for waiver wire. All right, let's go to the games. Here we go. This one is so interesting to me. I mean, I feel like this game is full of players I don't want to start with good matchups and players I do want to start with bad matchups. This is Jets at Seattle. And stat of the game number 1, since week 9, the Seahawks have seen the 3rd most rush attempts and allowed the 7th most rushing yards in the NFL. I believe this specifically to running backs. And they've had a bye in that stretch. So they've played fewer games than a number of teams. And that they've seen the 3rd most running back rush attempts and the 7th most running back rushing yards in football. So this is really relevant, I think, Heath, because Mike White has been, his last 2 games, on an efficiency basis, he's been awful against Minnesota and Buffalo. He's just thrown the ball a ton. So everybody's running on the Seahawks. Do you think the Jets can run the ball, will run the ball, or do you think they have another 44-plus pass attempt kind of game?
I've got him projected for 40 pass attempts, so not quite 44. But I think they might have a little bit of success running the ball. Zonovan Knight's a sneaky type flex, but I don't like him as anything close to a must-start guy.
Okay, Jamie, how do you see the Jets offense playing out in this game at Seattle?
I see them throwing. I mean, it's been a tough go for them running the ball. And yes, it's an easy matchup, but I think, you're talking about, let's say, Team X that runs the ball well will get 100 yards from its running back. I think Jets probably are in the 60 to 70-yard range at most, but it's hard to figure that it might be one guy because they've been chopping it up so much between 2 and sometimes 3 guys, depending on how the score has gone the last couple of weeks. Now, you can say it's been some tough matchups for Bam Knight. You can say the return of Michael Carter, but, you look at the 3 games that he played with Mike White, his numbers were very solid. Yeah. And you hope that that's the case, is that A, better offensive production across the board, B, quarterback who throws to running backs is there. So I will buy back into Bam Knight to a much higher extent, but that still does not mean he is a must-start guy. Like, for example, I will start him over DeAndre Swift. I will start him over Deontay Foreman, who's obviously coming off a huge game. I think there's good enough bounce back potential here that you can trust it if you're stuck. So like I said before, when you asked about, Pollard, even with this matchup and the potential of what Mike White has done for him, you tell me Pollard starting, I'm starting him over Bam Knight. But I will start Knight over potentially, if there's still another limited practice for him, over Aaron Jones. I'm very concerned about Jones with this ankle injury, what he's done lately.
And it has been a roller coaster ride in terms of running back rush attempts against the Seahawks. Last week, there were 20 for the Chiefs. Then you had Christian McCaffrey had 26. Foreman and Hubbard combined for 35. Well, they've been doing that to almost everybody. Josh Jacobs had 33 in that stretch.
Right.
Like they've played some teams that are prone to give their running backs a ton of rush attempts and are very good at running the ball.
Yeah. Right. All right. So let's talk about Mike White here. And you guys would start Goff over White, I assume?
Yes.
Dak over White. How about the struggling Justin Herbert or Mike White?
Still Herbert
for me. Like Minshew, I struggle with White. They're very, very close, and I'm a little bit nervous about Dak and White. I have them both on a roster. I'm going to start Dak, but I kind of want to start White. I may change my mind at the last minute tonight.
Oh man. All right. So you guys have him ahead of Brock Purdy and Daniel Jones, and for Jamie ahead of Geno Smith. For Heath, it's flipped.
I do have him ahead of Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, Jamie has Rodgers 11, White 12.
No, if you refresh, I made that switch this morning.
Just refresh before we went on.
If Watson plays, I will have Rodgers over White.
Okay. All right, so Mike White is basically right around 12th. He's 11th or 12th for everyone. And again, he's ahead of Geno Smith for Jamie. He's behind Geno Smith for Heath. Bam Knight, we just talked about. He's a flex. Obviously, it's a good opportunity here and some things going in his favor. Okay, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it at the start of the show. I gave you reasons to fear Garrett Wilson. You guys have no fear. He's top 15 for both of you. He's top 8 for Heath. You guys are starting Garrett Wilson. Fair enough. Tyler Conklin against the best matchup in fantasy. Heath, the Seahawks allow the most fantasy points to tight ends, and Conklin does have 7 and 8 targets in his last 2 games with Mike White. Didn't do anything with them. Starter sit Conklin.
Yeah, he is, I think, my favorite streaming option on the week, but I don't have a streamer inside my top 12 tight ends, and I'm trying to get away from Darren Waller, but I still don't think I would start Conklin over Darren Waller. So, like, you're probably going to need a touchdown to have a good day. He does not have more than 50 yards in a game since week 8, and he only has more than 34 yards in one of those games. There's a terrifying floor.
Mm-hmm. And there's a terrifying floor, I think, with Darren Waller, too, because he's played about 45% of the snaps in 2 games. Heath just told us that apparently they're going to scale back some of the veterans. We don't know who, but
now it could be the veterans they're going to scale back or the defensive players they put on IR right after they said they weren't going to play Carr anymore. So I don't like there was no specifics there.
Okay. Yeah, and Conklin is looks like about 15th for Jamie.
Conklin will be ahead of Waller for me.
Okay. Waller is currently 12th, so you'll be moving him down. Mark Andrews or Tyler Conklin?
Still Andrews.
Andrews.
All right, Heath, you're high on Geno Smith. You got him 9th. Jamie has him 15th. Dave has him 13th. Let's have a Geno Smith discussion, guys. And obviously, Tyler Lockett's a big part of this, but go ahead, Heath. Make the case for Geno Smith.
I think he still has a decent chance to get you to 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. He hasn't done that in the last 2 weeks, but one of those is against the 49ers. I'm not sure we should hold that much against him. He had such a great stretch from week 7 through week 14, multiple touchdown passes in all of those games, over 275 yards in 4 of those 7 games. I just have a hard time completely going away from him over the last 2 games, especially with Pete Carroll talking about what an important revenge game this is for both Geno and himself.
He said that?
Yes. They asked him about the revenge game for Geno Smith, and he said, don't forget, it's a revenge game for me too.
No way.
I think those were his words, yes.
He's fun.
Yes.
All right, Jamie, make the case against Geno Smith.
I mean, this defense has been absolutely fantastic. Since week 3, only one quarterback has gone over 20 fantasy points against them, which was Josh Allen twice. And in the second game, when these 2 teams met, before Quentin Williams got hurt, they were crushing Josh Allen. So as good as Geno is, I think this team is certainly reinvigorated with the quarterback. I'm going to guess they're wearing their Mike White shirts on the trip again, going out to Seattle. And so I think they can contain this Seahawks passing attack. I think Geno's struggling right now, which is unfortunate because he's had a great season. But, you're seeing a lot of flaws. You're seeing a lot of flaws in this offensive line too. And so I think the Jets can smell blood, and I think they'll take advantage of it. So, you talk about hot quarterbacks that have faced the Jets, and, Kirk Cousins was as hot as they got when they faced him. They shut him down. Again, they contained Josh Allen. It was all with his legs, really, for the majority. It held him to 147 passing yards in the second meeting. So I think it's going to be tough for Geno. It's unfortunate. Jared Goff too. I mean, think about what they did to him before the 51-yard Brock Wright reception.
Right. In their last 7 games, the Jets have held Josh Allen twice, Trevor Siemian, Kirk Cousins to 205 or fewer yards. So Josh Allen twice and Kirk Cousins, none of them threw for more than 205 yards. That's crazy. Trevor Lawrence, it's tough to really judge because the weather was so bad, but he had 229 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. So it's tough, Heath. It's the like what's the difference between the 49ers game 2 weeks ago for Geno and the Jets game this week?
I don't think the Jets defense is as good as the 49ers defense.
Might have a better secondary though.
And also, it's like I don't think Geno is going to give you a 25-point game. I don't think there are 10 quarterbacks that are. The guys that I have ranked just behind Geno Smith are guys like Gardner Minshew and Mike White and Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Okay. What's your confidence level in Ken Walker, guys?
Not very high, but he's going to get a lot of work. That's the plus. I would love it if DJ Dallas didn't play because what happened last week was a little frustrating.
He's a number 2 running back as long as he's fully healthy.
Yeah. Ken Walker ran 31 routes against the Niners and then 11 routes at Kansas City. It's just so unpredictable. You just don't know when he's going to catch passes. But 26 carries last week.
I think his health is obviously something you got to take into account. He's fighting through some probably pretty painful ankle injury. Again, not practicing on Wednesday, so you have to assume at this point he's playing, but who knows how fully functional he is.
So Walker or Dobbins, Najee Harris?
Walker.
McKinnon or Walker?
McKinnon, PPR.
Walker for me.
How about Kamara?
Kamara.
That may come down to like which one of those guys does more in practice over the next 2 days.
Okay. How about DK Metcalf or Ken Walker?
I'm not a big DK Metcalf guy this week, so I would go Walker.
DK for me. I'm just starting DK.
I mean, I'll start DK over him in PPR, but none and half.
So this was my other stat of the game for this game. We're spending a lot of time on this game because I think it's perhaps the most compelling fantasy game, just with the matchups. Let's take a look at the must-start wide receivers against the Jets. At least in my opinion, the guys who are must-starts. And there's only one that I think you could argue with, and it was Allen Lazard. He was more or less playing like a must-start. But earlier in the year, Amari Cooper.
Go ahead and argue with that one.
Yeah, fine. Amari Cooper had a huge game in week 2. Jamar Chase had 29 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins had 93 yards. That was in week 3. But the first 3 weeks of the season, the Jets kind of struggled. After that, Tyreek Hill had 47 yards. That was with Skylar Thompson. Allen Lazard had a big game. Stephon Diggs had 93 yards. Justin Jefferson, 45 yards and a touchdown. Diggs, 3 for 37. St. Brown, 7 for 76. Christian Kirk, 3 for 22, with the bad weather. So in my mind, they faced 10 must-start wide receivers.
You don't put Judy in that category?
No, certainly not then. Not with Brett Rippon and Cortland Sutton. In Heath's mind, he's removing Allen Lazard. Most of them got to at least 13. 8 of them got to at least 13 PPR fantasy points. Not a lot of huge games in there, though. So, I don't know. Over under 14 PPR points for DK Metcalf in this game.
I think that's a great number. That's basically what he got you against San Francisco.
Yeah.
I'd go slightly over, but I agree. It's not a bad number.
Okay. And the problem with Metcalf, though, is that he has been a guy who has struggled in the tougher matchups. He had 36 yards against Denver. He had 35 yards at San Francisco. Arizona is always a tough matchup for him. He was under 40 yards twice. He had 55 yards against San Francisco in the second matchup. So that's kind of been his thing. He has struggled against tougher cornerbacks and tougher matchups. And then how much does Tyler Lockett factor into this, guys? Like, Heath, how much would his presence impact your ranking of Metcalf?
I would definitely lower Metcalf into the number 2 wide receiver range. It might be as simple as I'd take slightly over the 14 without Lockett and slightly under with Lockett.
And Jamie, how about you?
I would put them right around the same spot, low or high 20s. So low end number 2 receivers.
Okay. And the Jets have not allowed a touchdown pass of 20 or more air yards since week 6. And that is Tyler Lockett's specialty and Geno Smith's specialty. Strength versus strength. So they'd be number 2 guys. Okay. You'd start Jerry Jeudy over them?
Yep.
Yes. I'm starting Jeudy over Metcalf without Lockett. So.
All right. Okay. I think that pretty much sums up the game. Any interest in Noah Fant if he plays, which I assume he will?
Touchdown or bust. I mean, they've been a little leaky to tight ends lately, but I think it's somewhat fluky. Knox was the first guy to score against them in the second matchup. Brock Wright had the 51-yard touchdown catch on the 4th down play. I think that caught them by surprise. And then Evan Ingram, who's just been torching everybody, got them on Thursday night. So I don't think Noah Fant is in the Evan Ingram range and even in the Dawson Knox range.
How about the Tyler Conklin? Did you say Conklin or Fant?
For me, it's Conklin.
They are in the same range for me, though. They're both around 15.
I think if you're debating Noah Fant and you're concerned and Juwan Johnson's available, that's the Spider-Man meme.
Let me just ask you one more Metcalf Lockett question. Would you guys start DJ Moore against the Bucs over the Seahawks guys?
1,000% yes.
I would start DK over DJ Moore if Lockett's out. I would start DJ Moore over both if Lockett plays.
Okie dokie. All right, our next game is the Rams and the Chargers. And I think, couple of tough calls here, maybe 3, with Akers and Herbert and Mike Williams, perhaps. But here's your not going to lie kind of weak stat of the game. The Rams are averaging 16.9 running back carries per game in losses, but they have had 19 or more running back carries in 3 of their last 4 losses. Really, I just want to see how many carries Cam Akers can get. He had a bunch last week, but that's not the typical thing there. So I asked you a bunch of Akers questions earlier. Jamie, it sounded like you were pretty high on him. Where do you come out on Cam Akers?
Top 15 running back. I think you got to buy into what he's done over the last month. 4 games with either 100 total yards or a touchdown. His numbers have popped with Baker Mayfield being used in the passing game clearly, which is nice to see. So figure 2 catches, maybe 3. Figure an opportunity here with a chance to run the ball. And I don't want to all of a sudden say that this Chargers run defense is fixed. So I think it's a good chance for Akers to have another solid game.
I just wonder if with Akers and Higbee, and he's a tough call too, I guess. Well, you guys are starting him, but with Akers and Higbee, I just wonder if we're getting a little carried away based on what happened against the Broncos. That was obviously arguably the best game of the season for the Rams, the worst game that we've seen maybe any team play all season in the Broncos. You usually just don't get that many carries from Cam Akers. You certainly don't get 3 touchdowns. And then Higbee obviously had his best game. So Heath, could we go into this game overrating the Rams a little?
Maybe overrating the Rams a little bit, but we saw Cam Akers with a 100-yard game the week before that. He's played 75% of the snaps in each of the last 2 games. It's the first time in his career he's played 75% of the snaps in back-to-back games. I think he is fully healthy, fully recovered. And this Chargers run defense gives up tons of, I know they didn't give up a lot of points to Zach Moss, but he was still picking up 5 yards a carry on a pretty regular basis. So I still expect they're going to have great success running against the Chargers. I think Akers is and it's not like we have Cam Akers ranked as a top 12 running back.
Okay. And Akers is averaging 4.6 yards per carry in his last 6 games. In his last 2 games, he has a 19-yard run and a 21-yard run. Those are his longest runs of the season.
And he has 5 targets in his last 2 games, which is nice.
That's nice. So he's got that going for him.
Yes.
Sit the Rams wide receivers and start Tyler Higbee. I don't know if I overlooked maybe I overlooked this. I kind of poo-pooed Higbee earlier in the week, but last week was his first game without Ben Skoranek, and I know that's not a huge deal, but it is sort of a short area target kind of guy. I don't know. Does that factor in at all? Is that a big boost for him?
If you're looking for a white guy with an 8 on his jersey across the middle, there's only one of them now. So that helps.
He's had such a disappointing season, and now I
don't think that's fair. I think you have to remember Tyler Higbee was tight end 22 in ADP. He's not had such a disappointing season. There were no expectations for Tyler Higbee.
Oh, for a guy who's if I look at the updated rankings, I think Jamie has him 6th this week. Yeah, he hasn't really been that, Jamie's got him 5th.
Well, again, you're talking about what the tight end landscape has been, and to be fair, you say he's had a disappointing season. In the beginning of the season, he was a must-start PPR guy.
Yeah.
So he certainly had that going for him. And then look, there's a quarterback change, and in the quarterback change, Kupp got hurt, Robinson got hurt. There's nobody really of significance in this passing game. Even the great Ben Skoranek, that has prohibited Baker Mayfield from leaning on arguably the best pass catcher on the field for them. So it's not an easy matchup. This is one of those teams, the Chargers, that the numbers are a little skewed because when the great tight ends have played them, they beat them up, mostly Kelsey. But Derwin James now banged up again. And, I don't think you should count on a touchdown per se for Higbee, even though he's got 3 in his last 2 games. But you should count on probably a hefty amount of targets and receptions. And so, I think he's fairly safe at this point, knowing what the position. If you tell me Andrews, Waller, Higbee, the one that stands out to me is Higbee.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, if Lamar Jackson plays, who would you start?
No, obviously that changes things a little bit, but I'd probably still start Higbee in PPR. Andrews doesn't have a great history against Steelers.
Higbee had 5 targets 2 games ago. That's the thing. He had 11 targets last week, but he only had 5.
You also mentioned those.
Would you rather start Taysom Hill?
No, I think I would actually put Higbee 7th, maybe 6th. The only guy that Jamie has behind him that I would disagree with is Goddard. I'd definitely start Goddard over him.
But again, you're talking about Goddard against a team that arguably is the best against tight ends all season.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me that much, but fair. No, I just was bringing it up. Tight ends is so bad. It's even worse this week with Waller and Andrews being so unreliable. He's a little lower on Higbee of 9th.
It just comes down to, and Heath has said this a few times, how much this week is frustrating. For me, I'm at the point where I'm trusting hot hands at this point, and Higbee is so involved with Baker Mayfield. Like, why would you get away from that if that's the guy that's gotten you to this point to go a different direction? So if you've been sitting Goddard or have Goddard and Higbee and you want to go Goddard, I'm not going to fight you. But if you're talking about, I picked up Higbee because of Mark Andrews' struggles or now Darren Waller's situation, to me that's an easy one.
Like, you've been the Dalton Schultz defender. Would you go Dalton Schultz or Higbee?
Forgot about Dalton Schultz. I would go Dalton Schultz. I think I would go Dalton Schultz, and I would go Dalton Schultz. I'm just gonna stick with that.
Are you gonna say Dalton Schultz is more likely to score a touchdown than Tyler Higbee?
Yes, I do think he is.
Do they have the same number of touchdowns this season?
They do.
They do.
I still think he's much more likely because Dak Prescott is more likely to throw touchdowns than Baker Mayfield. But all right, starter sit Justin Herbert. 2 straight games with fewer than 9 points. Starter sit Herbert.
I'm starting him.
I got some questions about with Eckler banged up. Is their seed locked in?
I don't think so.
I don't think their seed is locked in, but they're not winning. They're going to be somewhere between 6 and 7.
Their seed is absolutely. Why? They could be 5. They're a game behind the Ravens. Yeah, if the Ravens lose out and the Chargers, I don't know who would have the tiebreaker, but if the Ravens lose out, then the Ravens go to 10 and 7, and the Chargers.
The 5 would be worth it.
Yes, the 5 gets you the AFC South winner.
Right.
God, I mean, they could lose to Jacksonville. Yeah, look, Herbert, I think you got to understand what you're getting at this point. A lot of pass attempts, terrible red zone production. If he gets you 2 scores, you're going to be great. If he doesn't, you're looking at a game like last week.
I do think one thing that's been overshadowed because he hasn't got into the end zone the last couple of weeks is since he's got Mike Williams and Keenan Allen both on the field together, his efficiency in terms of yards per pass attempt, he was at like 6.5 yards per attempt for the first 13 weeks of the season, which is awful. It's really bad. He's been 7.5 yards per attempt the last 3 weeks, basically. So things are better. They just haven't got into the end zone recently.
Mm-hmm. Well, I say their last 5 touchdowns have been rushing touchdowns from 1, 1, 1, 1, and 3 yards out. So it's just
great. And it's easier to score against the Rams through the air than it is on the ground, or has been this season.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, is that catch going to go down to the 1 yard line, or is it going to get into the end zone? What's going to happen on the next play? You got to start Austin Eckler. I understand he's banged up, right? But you got to start Eckler.
100%.
As long as he plays.
I think the thing with Herbert, again, to talk about some of these other guys, like I'm not jumping from Herbert to White or Minshew.
Chargers wide receivers, Keenan Allen's obviously a must start here. Mike Williams, starter sit, guys. He has in 10 healthy games, he has 5 games with 11.6 or fewer PPR fantasy points and 5 games with 19 or more PPR fantasy points. That is so Mike Williams, starter sit.
I would start him, but this is most likely where Ramsey goes, and it could be very tough for him. So again, it's a matter of who you have in comparison. So if you want to have a few of those conversations, we can, but for the most part, I think you're probably starting Mike Williams for the potential upside.
I would start DJ Moore over him. I'd start Christian Watson over him if he plays. Full PPR, I think I'd start Greg Dortch over him. But I would start Mike Williams over Devontae Adams and Mike Evans.
Okay.
I agree with all of that, except for Dortch, unless we knew for sure he's lined up in the slot and playing the same amount of snaps.
Right. Okay, and then sit Gerald Everett, and the Chargers DST is startable for sure. All right, we'll take a break. We have 6 games left, so we got to pick up the pace here. We will when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. Denver is at Kansas City. Okay. Do you want to start anyone other than Jerry Jeudy for the Broncos, Jamie?
No, but I think Sutton in 3 receiver leagues, he's on the cusp.
Give me a real quick thought on Latavius Murray, because Latavius Murray, he'll get you around 10 PPR points most weeks, and last week obviously was awful, but thoughts on Murray?
Well, last week was a change because Chase Edmonds was there, so I think you have to factor in last week being awful. 3 guys now sharing the ball, new coach. So to me, Murray is kind of hands off. So if you're desperate, you need a flex, go ahead. But I don't want to trust it.
Okay, well, just to clear up the usage in that game, Mac was a non-factor until like the final drive of the game. Murray and Edmonds were basically splitting snaps in the first 3 quarters. Edmonds was the passing downs guy. Murray had almost all the carries. So probably Murray losing his catch potential. But still will, based on last week, would be probably the ball carrier. But yeah, he's very unappealing. So Jerry Jeudy is top 12 for you guys. And I don't have to really get that into it. He's just been awesome lately. In the last 3 games, he's 9th among wide receivers in targets, 5th in catches, 6th in yards, and 2nd behind Justin Jefferson in catches that have gone for 16 or more yards. Start him. Sutton, we said earlier, is a number 3 guy. If Dulcich plays, Heath, would you consider Greg Dulcich?
Yeah, absolutely. He'd be if he was played and cleared and no question about his playing time, he would be a top 12 tight end for me. Definitely over Darren Waller, over Taysom Hill, in the Tyler Higbee range.
As far as the Chiefs go, do you think the Broncos defense bounces back and is respectable in this game, or is this just they're done?
What does Russell Wilson do?
He's decent. He's in the, 230 yards and a touchdown or 2.
Doesn't turn it over twice in the first quarter?
Just once.
I think they're respectable then.
Okay.
I mean, they were down 27-0 before you blinked in this game. And then Russell Wilson.
They almost won.
This defense, you can't trust them.
No, I don't mean as a DST. I just mean like the game script and which Chiefs are you no doubt about it starting? Mahomes and who else?
Kelsey.
Kelsey, of course. No Juju? Like Juju's not a no doubt about it?
I mean, Juju had a good game against them the last time, but this has still been the strength of this defense. So he's in that borderline range, for me at least, of DK Metcalf, Mike Williams, Brandon Ayuk, those guys where, you see certainly some upside, but you also can see the flaws. I'd probably say similar things about McKinnon, just because, you never know if it's going to be a minimal usage game, but I do think that they want to get him the record that he may or may not want, which is to score a touchdown in 5 consecutive games. It'll be the first time anybody's done that since 1970.
A running back scoring a receiving touchdown.
Running back scoring a receiving touchdown.
Oh, I was like, yeah, that doesn't say.
running back.
Zeke's already crushed that record. No, okay.
Running back scoring a receiving touchdown in 5 straight games.
Gotcha. Okay, so just back to Juju real quick. Like, he's had a couple of real stinkers in his last 4 games, but in those 2 games, Mahomes threw 27 and 28 times for 223 and 224 yards. When Mahomes has a regular game, Juju's almost a lock for 17 PPR points. So just want to say that, I'm confident in him as a number 2 guy. Sounds like you are too.
Yeah, low end start. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's a must start in a number 3 league, and he's a questionable guy in a 2 wide receiver league.
So I don't know. McKinnon drives me crazy, but okay.
I mean, look, you said it before. The Chiefs are one of the teams you would say is a lock to win this week. I think at this point, assuming that that's the case, Mahomes is chasing the MVP right now, right? Not he's trying to lock up the MVP. So is this a pad the stats game for him?
We're going to see, just because I made the joke on HQ yesterday about how much the Chiefs like records, and they have done some things, especially with Kelsey, of trying to get him certain records at certain times. They've got all kinds of numbers and things they're chasing. Mahomes probably unlikely, but like 750 yards away from the passing yards record. Kelsey is got a chance at his own tight end receiving yards record and the tight end catch record. And then McKinnon with the possible 5 straight receiving touchdowns record, if they know about that one. We'll find out. It could be a record-chasing game.
What about Pacheco? He's the only guy we haven't talked about. Would you rather start Pacheco or Latavius Murray?
Pacheco, for sure.
That's not close.
Pacheco or Tony Pollard?
Unless, again, you get word that Pollard's really going to be limited. It's Pollard.
Yeah.
Pacheco or, as of right now, Aaron Jones?
Jones,
as long as he's okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But Pacheco over Swift.
Bam Knight or Pacheco?
Who?
Bam.
I'll take Bam.
I'll go Pacheco.
All right. That's it. Nope. DST. Kansas City's DST. 4th for Jamie. 12th for Heath.
Just to tie this in, and again, you'll have another conversation about this later. Tom Pelissaro said on the NFL Network that Tony Pollard is very much in doubt.
Wow. Okay. Jacksonville's at Houston. Out of the game. Justin Herbert, 25 points. Jalen Hurts, 23. Daniel Jones, 21. Patrick Mahomes, 36 points. Are the only quarterbacks to score more than 17 points against the Texans. They have held Justin Fields to 4 points. Trevor Lawrence to 9. Derek Carr to 15. Tua Tagovailoa to 17, but he left the game early. Deshaun Watson to 5. Dak Prescott to 15 fantasy points. It's interesting. And on the bright side, 3 of the last 5 quarterbacks to face the Texans have thrown 39 or more passes. So I asked you earlier, I know you guys are starting him, but Heath, starter sit Trevor Lawrence.
I am starting Trevor Lawrence. I mean, we don't have 12 quarterbacks we like. I'm not starting Gardner Minshew or Mike White over Trevor Lawrence. I'm starting him.
Okay.
Like, if we're not getting away from Herbert after what he's done the last 2 weeks, we're definitely not getting away from Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what I said about Higbee. He is as dialed in as a quarterback you'll find right now. He just looks so good. So using his legs, Peterson has just been fantastic. If they win the division, he's coach of the year. I don't care about what anybody else has done. To turn what Urban Meyer's disaster was into the playoff team, that's very, very impressive.
Coach of the year. All right. Well,
they've got so many good. I guess I can't remember a year with so many good candidates. Like Shanahan with 3 different quarterbacks to win that division.
Sirianni could very well win it.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
Dable. Saleh.
Dan Campbell if the Lions make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. It is a good year. Yeah.
Pete
All
Carroll.
right. He's not gonna win it, but he's done a good job.
Ron Rivera.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Steve
Kevin
Wilkes.
O'Connell.
Sure. Okay, so Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert, who would you guys rather start?
Lawrence
or Dak?
Lawrence.
Okay. ETN's a must start. Kirk is not a must start. And well, if you look at the receivers that have actually done well against the Texans, it's always outside guys. They're amazing against slot receivers. They don't really get a lot of targets against slot receivers. But any thought to actually, if you go back to the first time these teams played, it was Marvin Jones was the only one who had a good game, and Ingram was solid too.
So Juju was not playing in the slot against the Texans?
All I know is the numbers they give up to players who start the play lined up in the slot, to wide receivers lined up in the slot. They give up the second fewest yards. So Juju plays both spots, he moves in and out.
Right.
But I think Kirk has a much higher slot percentage than Juju does. Anyway, just bringing that up. Any thoughts on the Jaguars receivers real quick?
I mean, I think, Kirk is, to me, a low-end number 2 in PPR and borderline guy in non-PPR. And Zay Jones is not far behind him in both formats.
Would you start Brandon Cooks in this game over either Kirk or Zay Jones?
Not there yet.
I would go Kirk, Cooks, Jones.
Kirk, Cooks, Jones. Zay Jones has also a pretty simple formula. When Trevor Lawrence throws a lot, Zay Jones is awesome. When Lawrence throws like 31 or fewer pass attempts, Zay Jones does not do well. And teams usually don't throw much on the Texans, but they are lately.
Pete Prisco has talked about this a lot, that since the Jaguars have moved Darius Williams outside, their pass defense has been much better.
Okay. So that's a Cooks thing. Evan Ingram is top 4 in non-PPR, top 2 in full PPR. Start him over everyone but Kelsey. And that's it.
Wait, did we get that right, though? Because you wanted us to have Kittle second.
I mean, I would put Kittle second, but that's fine. Maybe I'd put Ingram second in PPR because Kittle doesn't get a lot of targets.
So I have it.
Yeah. That was on Monday.
I don't want you to yell at me.
I wasn't going to yell at you. When do I yell at you? It's been at least 3 years since I've yelled at you, I'd say.
3 years?
Probably. We're on a good run. All right, let's talk about Brandon Cooks, though, because the Jaguars, I guess getting better, but they're 19th against receivers. Cooks had 9 targets and a touchdown last week. Would you start Brandon Cooks or Jahan Dotson?
I'll take Cooks in PPR, Dotson and none.
I'm going to go Cooks in both, but they are right in the same range.
Mike Evans or Brandon Cooks?
Cooks.
I've got Evans higher.
Bam Knight or Brandon Cooks?
Cooks.
I will take Bam Knight.
Jaguars DST or Chiefs DST?
One of those is playing Russell Wilson.
One of them is playing Davis Mills.
Davis Mills is better than Russell Wilson.
I don't believe that Davis Mills is better than Russell Wilson.
I'm kidding.
But you both have.
I am going Chiefs DST.
Chiefs.
I've been called out for not having Jacksonville's DST high enough, which means that Jacksonville's DST is going to be awful.
I would call you out for not having the Chiefs DST high enough too.
Yeah. Well,
You have them 12th. So okay.
how many they scored last time they played the Broncos?
Yeah, probably not good. Well, they did have a touchdown.
Did they?
Yeah, that was how they got up 27-0. I think they had an interception.
Okay. Yeah.
Touchdown.
So they probably did have a good game.
Let's see. Yes, they had a huge game. Actually, they had 6 sacks and a touchdown against the Broncos. In
Wow.
week 15.
I'll move them up.
All right, Miami at New England. Small sample size. Stat of the game: Jalen Waddle in 2 games with Teddy Bridgewater. Just the throws that Bridgewater made when he was on the field, because Bridgewater has not started a game. He's come in relief twice. Waddle had 1 catch for 19 yards on 2 targets at the Bengals and 3 catches for 77 yards on 7 targets against the Vikings. Also, Waddle in his last 6 games overall has had a target share below 17% in 3 of the last 6 games. He's pretty big play dependent. Starter sit Jalen Waddle, guys.
Start him, but in that same low end number 2 range.
As Kirk, and for you, Metcalf.
Mike Williams, Brandon Ayuk. He's better than those guys, but in that range.
I would start Garrett Wilson and Jerry Jeudy and DJ Moore over him if I had all 4 of those guys.
Agreed.
Oh, boy. Would you? Wow. It's Jalen Waddle.
I think there's a real chance there's a disaster. Like Jalen Waddle without Tua has not been the same guy. And
It's pretty limited. But
I think there's a real risk of this Dolphins team starting Teddy Bridgewater going into Foxborough just not really scoring.
Dave likes Bridgewater this week. You guys are not feeling that, right?
No.
I think Dave's been kind of all over the place with Bridgewater, because Tuesday morning when we discussed him, he was Teddy. And then on HQ, I backed off my Teddy take.
Okay, let's see where he has him. In his latest rankings, he has Bridgewater 18th. I think he was all the way up to 12 at one point. Okay, so nobody's that high on Bridgewater. And obviously the appeal of Bridgewater, if you're in a 2-quarterback league, is the 2 wide receivers. It doesn't take much for them to make a huge play for you, right? So hopefully.
This is why the Dolphins have Teddy Bridgewater for this situation, because he's proven backup, proven starter in this league at times, and hopefully can still get them to the playoffs. But yeah, as Heath said, there's real potential for failure. Tua's been great. Mike McDaniel's been amazing as a play caller, and the last month, whether it's just teams figuring them out or poor play or some offensive line, injuries, Austin Jackson not being there at the right tackle spot, it's been a little bit of a disaster. So, it seemed as if they were turning in the right direction against Buffalo, and then whether it was the concussion or just poor play last week, they took a huge step back in the second half, and now it's a backup quarterback on the road against Bill Belichick. So you got to really take all those things into account.
Are you sitting the Dolphins running backs?
Yeah.
I would like to, yeah.
Are you sitting the entire Patriots passing game?
I would like to, yeah.
Are you sitting Mike Gesicki? Yep.
No, this is the week.
For Gesicki? He caught 2 touchdowns from Teddy Bridgewater earlier this year. So Stevenson, we talked a lot about yesterday. Would you guys start Cam Akers or Ramondre Stevenson?
Ramondre.
Yeah.
How about Leonard Fournette or Ramondre Stevenson?
Fournette.
Okay. And definitely, if Pollard doesn't play, definitely Zeke, right?
Yes.
So
Zeke is a top 5 guy if Pollard doesn't play.
Yeah. Patriots wide receivers. Okay, that's it for this game, right? Yeah, that's it for this game. Oh, wait. How about the you guys have the Patriots DST top 5. Heath, you have them number 1.
I just told you what I think could happen to the Dolphins.
Number 1. 49ers have got to be number 1. Cowboys and Niners have to be 1, 2. Jamie's got it right. Dave's got it right. Heath, adjust the rankings. Cowboys and Niners have to be 1, 2.
I will not.
All right, fine. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. All right, stat of the game. I don't have bad stats of the games this today. I'm sorry, everyone. I could look up a fun fact about Baltimore if people would prefer that. But running backs are averaging 3.2 yards per carry against the Ravens in 7 games since they acquired Roquan Smith. However, last 2 games, Cleveland, 4.9 yards per carry. Tyler Algier, 4.1 yards per carry. So I don't know if that's anything. I'll say the most encouraging thing for Najee Harris going into this game is that before the Lamar Jackson injury, the Ravens were first, second, or third in terms of fewest running back carries per game. Almost no running backs would ever get more than 13 carries. But since then, you have had Nick Chubb, I think Latavius Murray, and Tyler Algier, all with a decent amount of carries, all with 14 or more carries. So they're just not as good offensively. They don't possess the ball for as much without Lamar Jackson. So anyway, Najee Harris, guys, I know it's a tough matchup. He did score against them last time he played. He had 6 catches last week. Jamie, how do you feel about Najee?
If you tell me right now he's going to be that involved in the passing game, then I have him ranked too low. But it's hard to figure because the 3 games prior to that, he was a non-factor in the passing game, including the first game against Baltimore. So this feels like a 6-3, 9-6 type of game. And we've certainly seen Baltimore do that. You know, you referenced the Browns game. It was 13-3. I just don't see a lot of points because these 2 defenses are so good. So for me, Najee Harris is a flex option.
Yeah, I think he's a poor man's version of Tyler Algier. He's not going to be as efficient. He doesn't have as good a matchup. They both had the 1 week spike in passing game, but you can't really count on that. So yeah, Algier's a low end number 2, and Najee's more of a flex.
Kenny Pickett has 5 games this season with 38 or more pass attempts. In those 5 games, Najee Harris has 3, 6, 4, and 6 catches. So that's what it is. It's not like he played more on third down or anything like that. It's just he will catch more passes if Kenny Pickett throws a bunch of passes.
And I don't think this is a huge pass volume game for Pickett because I don't think the Ravens are going to score that much.
Right. Total in this game is 35. So who do you want to start in this game?
No one.
Shane.
Absolutely no one.
Can't think of anyone that I want to start.
Freiermuth?
Maybe just because of his position, but it's tough. It's really tough. You know, I mean, you know, Dobbins had the big game against them in the first meeting, but the last 2 weeks, the Steelers' run defense has been absolutely terrifying. You know, what they did to the Panthers, you know, so which Panthers offense was it or which Steelers defense is it? You know, I think you got to give the Steelers defense some credit because then they did the same thing against Josh Jacobs. Now, granted, you heard the complaints from Jacobs after the game that they got away from the run, but give the Steelers run defense some credit. And so I think just knowing what the offense looks like for Baltimore right now, where it feels like it's completely broken, Dobbins breaking off that 44-yard run, which he should have scored on, you know, probably normal J.K. Dobbins, but, you know, gets him down to the inside the 5, I forget where he ended up, but, you know, punching it in, you know, play or 2 later, that I don't want to say take that away and, you know, you're getting that because it's still an 80-yard day for him. But, you know, it's 2 guys splitting touches, which, you know, I got burned by it last week because Dobbins was my start of the week. That Edwards is still a significant factor. It could be him falling in the end zone this week. They both don't catch passes. The receiving cores are both in some tough spots based on the matchups that they're dealing with. So, yeah, I mean, this is an easy game to avoid if you can.
Gus Edwards, by the way, is averaging 5.2 yards per carry this season. That is now all 4 seasons of his career between 5 and 5.3 yards per carry. And Mark Andrews, I guess we definitely have to talk about. Which tight end do you like better in this game?
Freiermuth right now.
I think I have Andrews slightly higher, but they're both low-end options, and I'd rather start Tyler Higbee over both of them.
How about Njoku at Washington?
I don't like Njoku very much.
So you'd start those guys. Jamie would start Njoku over over Freiermuth and Andrews.
Yeah, I think Njoku's, you know, the first 2 games of Watson were certainly encouraging. Then he played Baltimore, and then he played in the snow. So,
how about Dalton Schultz tonight?
Schultz over Freiermuth and Andrews.
These guys over Schultz.
San Francisco is at Las Vegas. Stat of the game. Christian McCaffrey and Melvin Gordon. I said this yesterday. Christian McCaffrey and Melvin Gordon are the only running backs to score more than 13.4 PPR fantasy points against the Niners. And they have not allowed 60
Probably
rushing.
clarify that.
Why?
Because McCaffrey was not on the Niners when he did.
Oh, I think that's implied. No running back has rushed for 60 yards against San Francisco this year. The floor is so low for Josh Jacobs. Where did you guys end up ranking him? Jamie, you can start.
I am in the process of adjusting following the car news, so he will be probably closer to 20. I hope that Stidham throws the ball to him still, but it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. If you're Jacobs at this point, do you even want to play? Because all you're doing is risking injury when you're going into free agency. Like if I'm him, I'd be like, you know what, you're sitting Carr. He's not coming to the building. I'm gonna go play cards with him. Like, good luck.
I think it just depends on, does he want the rushing title? And I don't. There's no way to know that. I will say, like, my only case for Jacobs is that if you look at the running backs against the 49ers as a whole, they've given up about 20 fantasy points per game to running backs over the last 3 weeks. They've given up about 17 per game to running backs over the last 5 weeks.
Really?
There are not that many running backs that touch the ball for the Raiders.
They're really giving up that many points over the last few weeks.
We had 17 fantasy points for the 3 Washington backs combined last week.
Mm-hmm.
We had 19 fantasy points for the 2 Seahawks. We had 23 fantasy points for the 2 Buccaneers.
I mean, it should be noted that
all the Raiders running backs this week. It's not
that's the difference, though. Josh Jacobs gets 90% of the team's rush attempts.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it really okay. This is a PPR conversation because if you're not playing in a full PPR league, then it's even less appealing because a lot of that is just catches. It's just really hard to get any yards on the ground against the Raiders. But I mean, if you're in a PPR league, like I said, in his career, Stidham has thrown, I think, 61 passes or something, and he's completed about 52% of them, which is bad, but he's thrown 26% of his attempts to running backs. I have no idea if that's going to hold up, but you could easily see Josh Jacobs PPRing his way into a decent game. But he's running his way, though.
To your point, Heath, about the rushing title, the guy he's competing with is not playing this week.
That's true.
And that is who?
Henry.
Oh, Durr.
Durr.
Yeah. Okay, Adams. Or Mike Evans.
Evans.
Wow. Adams or DJ Moore.
Moore.
Adams or Tyler Algier.
Tyler Algier.
Algier for sure and non. I think I'd still go Adams in PPR.
I mean, just think about this. Adams has 18 targets the last 2 games and has been miserable with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Now he's got to go with Jarrett Stidham against the 49ers. Like, this just feels absolutely awful.
But you know what's weird? It's like the Niners have actually been really bad against receivers this year.
They've been bad against receivers at times this year. They've also faced good quarterback play in some of those games. This could be a total disaster.
But last week they gave up 77 yards and a touchdown to McLaurin, 76 yards and a touchdown to Dotson, 52 yards and a touchdown to Samuel. They weren't facing good quarterbacks last week.
By comparison, yes, they were.
I mean, maybe, but still, I mean, that's what, 19 targets for those 3 guys and like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't know. They've had their moments. They were great against the Seahawks. They gave up a 75-yard touchdown to Trent Sherfield. It's weird. For as great as this defense is, giving up the 6th most fantasy points to wide receivers is a little weird.
What did we see at times with Devontae Adams without Aaron Rodgers?
Very, very rare, but not good. Actually, I think 1 game. Am I crazy? Oh, no. Okay. So 1 game last year with Jordan Love against the Chiefs, got a ton of targets, did nothing with it. But there was like the 8 games, I don't know, 6 years ago, whatever the heck it was, when Rodgers missed the last half of the season. And Adams was good. He was something like top 12. Not elite, but he was good. That was with, who were their quarterbacks then? I don't know, scrubs.
The Packers quarterbacks then when Rodgers missed?
I wanted to say Brian Hoyer, but I don't think he was on that team.
I remember.
Brett Hundley?
Brett Hundley. That's what it was. I got the initials right. Yeah.
Brian Hoyer.
All right. Brock Purdy. We haven't talked about him. Brock Purdy is your third favorite streamer, right? Behind White and Minshew in some order. Minshew, White.
Yep.
Okay. Would you start Daniel Jones against the Colts or Brock Purdy at the Raiders?
Jones.
Purdy or Aaron Rodgers?
Rodgers.
Ooh, I got a good one. Tom Brady or Purdy?
Purdy.
And then Brandon Ayuk is like a borderline number 2 guy.
Yes, I think again, it comes down to they clearly can still win next week and Minnesota loses, and if Minnesota wins this week. But if they somehow are not going to get the 2 seed, they may sit guys next week.
The only way that's happening is if they lose and Minnesota wins, right? The only way that week 17, the only way they're eliminated from the 2 seed is if they lose to the Raiders and Minnesota beats the
right. I guess that situation is not really relevant, but I do think getting Ayuk to 1,000 yards is something that they will try to do.
Okay, Kittle is top 4. You guys have Ingram ahead of him and Kelsey, and who would be the other one ahead of him? Hawkinson. Okay. Start the Niners DST and sit Darren Waller if you can. We'll go to our last game here. It is Buffalo at Cincinnati. I mean, it's the best game of the week, but it's kind of an easy one for fantasy, right, Heath? Are there any tough calls in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to start the running back for Buffalo, Devin Singletary, but I think in a flex conversation, he is a tough call. I think Gabe Davis, in a similar way, is a tough call. And then if Hayden Hurst is able to play, he might be Dawson Knox is kind of a tough call.
Knox is, yeah. How do you guys feel about Dawson Knox? On fire.
Again, hot hand.
And you know what? I think, look, I don't know if this is correlated, but I think you can make this case. Like Josh Allen, I've laid it out. He is not throwing the ball deep nearly as much lately. Now, if you look at the ADOT or the air yards per pass attempts, you wouldn't see that. But just in terms of the take the top off the defense, 35-yard pass, air yard pass down the field or more, not happening as much as it was. And that could be benefiting Dawson Knox for sure. Also, since he hurt his elbow, like this is what's right. First 9 games, you had 13 pass attempts of 35 or more air yards for Josh Allen. And those went for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns. Since he hurt his elbow, in 6 games, he's thrown 7 passes of 30 or more air yards, only 4 passes of 35 or more air yards, and they've all been incomplete. So he has not completed a single deep ball, really, of 35 or more air yards since he hurt his elbow. I looked at all 4 of them. I would say 2 of them should have been caught. One of them, I don't know if you remember, Gabe Davis just wasn't looking up. But it is a big difference. And Josh Allen he hasn't been that good passing the ball since the elbow injury. It's benefited Dawson Knox, I think. By the way, which quarterback do you prefer in this game?
Allen.
Since week 8, Joe Burrow is QB4 per game. Josh Allen is QB5. Let's start, guys, even though Allen's getting it done with his legs more than his arm. All right. Your confidence in Diggs this week?
Still starting him.
Yep. The opposite of the hot hand, but I'm not sitting him.
Would you start Devin Singletary over a Dolphins running back?
I would.
Yes.
Would you start Devin Singletary or Isaiah Pacheco?
Pacheco.
Yeah, it should be noted. The Bengals run defense is nasty. Really, really good. And I can't wait for this game, and the Bengals are going to win. I already bet my $10 on it, so let's go. Best bet. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Can't believe you mushed the Bengals.
No, I didn't. We're good. Remember my best bet last week? It was an absolute lock. Eagles.
Vikings.
Eagles +6. And we just barely hung on to that one. Thank God I got it at +6. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you at 2:00 for the live stream. Apparently, Heath is going to swing on by for a little bit. Looking forward to that. For Jamie and Heath and Thomas, I'm Adam. Let's go get a win. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow.